Good night, good night, good night. Good night. Good night. All right, good night and welcome, guys. Good night and welcome on this blessed Tuesday. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to tell you that tonight we have a very important show. As we always do, we'd like you to share the live feed. Just go ahead. If you haven't done so, go ahead and share the live feed, because tonight we have a wonderful, very informative topic. We're going to be discussing on the ICJ Belize Guatemala case. As you very well know, we just submitted our counter memorial. We're going to learn all about these things. So on this 7th June 2022, we're going to learn a bit more about this ICJ Belize Guatemala case, because we have in studio, actually we have two of our guests and they are joining us. You know, a lot of times people can't be in studio, so we have to bring them on. And we have, courtesy of live streaming, we're on Max TV and radio, which is on all central cable TV and internet. On Corozal, in Corozal, Orange Walk, Ladyville, we're on channel 51 on Max TV and radio. In San Pedro, we're on channel 33. In Belize City, Belmopan, Cayo, Danbriga, Punta Gorda, we're on channel 14. And of course, we are live on MadLab Radio. We're on Maximum Radio and Radio Net, and we're live streaming, of course, on the Zenaida Moya Show Facebook page, the YouTube channel, LinkedIn, Instagram, and of course Twitter. So we're all over, and of course we normally have our viewers around the world, really, because we always have guests all the way from Africa, from England, of course, from Canada, from India as well, not only England, India, the Caribbean, Taiwan. We have viewers from Taiwan, of course, from Mexico, El Salvador, Belize. So we have around the world, and I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. So tonight we have with us a very special set of people, two very distinguished persons, I may add, of the Belize Peace Movement. Belize Peace Movement, the peace stands for patriots engaged against corruption and exploitation. So the Belize Peace Movement. And with us we have Mr. Paul Morgan. Paul Morgan is, first and foremost, he's a Belizean citizen. He's a patriot, so I can tell you that. He's an avid researcher, a learner, and one of the 10 claimants in the historic case 55 of 2019, which is the redistricting case. He advocated against the Belize-Guatemala Special Agreement. In 1985, he graduated from Michigan State University with degrees in economics, education, and management. And he has worked in oil exploration operations, shrimp farming, and agricultural research. He has served in upper management positions in the private sector. And today, Paul is self-employed in agribusiness and information technology. He's a founding member of the Vision Inspired by the People and the Belize Peace Movement. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Paul Morgan to the show. Welcome. And of course, I want to welcome my old, well, not old friend as in old, he's old, but old friend. We go way back, Hubert and Enriquez. We were public officers together. And Hubert and I, we both served on the, Belize Public Service Union. I remember he was first vice president and I was second vice president at the time. And Hubert has been he's a retired public officer. I know he has engaged in surveys as well. And, he's Hubert, you have also been a mayoral candidate. Of course, he has been a mayoral candidate for the vision inspired by people, and he has been on the executive, of, and he's the director of the Belize Peace Movement. And so I just want to welcome Mr. Hubert Enriquez to the show. Good night, my dear friend.
Good to hear, Mr. Zenaida. Certainly good to hear to belong with you.
And of course, Hubert has been quite a bit to Africa, Uganda as well, and he has been to to a lot of the African countries that I have, I've had the pleasure of visiting a few of them. He has been to quite a number of them, and so he brings with us quite a bit of knowledge. Because we're going to discuss certain things that also delve into, because I know there's an ICJ case even in Nigeria. So I don't know, maybe we'll be able to get to that part. But I want to say, the ICJ. I mean, I can speak a lot more on the ICJ, but let me hold off on that. I am not the guest, but I will tell you that there was a referendum that was held, and with that referendum, we had, an outcome, and I want us to really get in tune with what happened at that particular referendum. So, gentlemen, if one of you could start and just tell us a bit of history, because there are some viewers who, we have young and old in between viewers who, some of them may not know what exactly is this ICJ, this Belize Guatemala claim that went to the ICJ, that was voted on, and is now a case that we are dealing with internationally. So could you kindly share a little bit about that particular, the history, what came about? I know there's a lot of things that were brought into the mix. The heads of agreement is one of them that a lot of us may think of, but please tell us a bit about it.
Well, certainly. Should I start, Hubert?
All right, go ahead, Brother.
Okay, with your permission, Al, I want us to remember that the ICJ issue came out of this document we call a special agreement. I think those of you who followed the whole matter from 2008 to this point will remember that the special agreement was done in secrecy at first. And that secrecy trails the whole implementation of the referendum and the whole implementation now of the case, because I think we're here due to the fact that we haven't heard anything more. We haven't been updated on the case. But just to give you a background on it, the special agreement, this document here, asked that the two countries, as the ICJ, that is the Guatemala and Belize, got together on a legal basis to ask the ICJ to declare, to do three things. First, it was to hear any and all claims of Guatemala against Belize to land, keys, and sea areas. That's the first thing they asked the ICJ, to hear all claims. Second thing is they asked the ICJ together to declare the rights of Guatemala within Belize, if there are any such rights. And third, it asked the ICJ to determine the boundaries of Belize. These are three critical asks that Belize went to the ICJ along with Guatemala, hand in hand, to ask the ICJ. And so rather than articulate or ponder on all the ramifications of those, I'll just stop there to say that we had a referendum, and the Belize people voted to take this document, this agreement, to the ICJ. 45% of the people voted no, and 55% of the people voted yes. So now, cut a long story short, we are at the ICJ. Belize has, like you said, Belize has just delivered its memorial, and we could talk about the process later on. I think I brought everybody into why the disagreement, what is the special agreement about, and where we are right now with the whole thing.
Yeah. Just to fill in what Brother Paul had said earlier, it is noteworthy that in fact that the Belize Peace movement, of which we are members, were very instrumental in the opposition to the referendum on the ICJ. In fact, the 45% which Paul spoke about really was largely due to the efforts of the Belize Peace movement at that time. In dialogue, and to represent the alternative view, why we shouldn't go to the ICJ.
Okay.
And so where we are right now is that the vote was taken, and in fact, it was passed. But we're at the ICJ with more or less in a divided way. The country is not really quite as united as we should have been, going to such a tremendous, making such a tremendous step which could jeopardize our country. So almost half of the country really truly is not really with the decision to have gone to the ICJ. Nonetheless, we are there now. And what is bothersome is the fact that there has been a lot of secrecy surrounding this whole matter. In fact, even at the point where we went to the ICJ, we did so without even knowing what it is that Guatemala was going to claim. Now, if you look at, just to give an example, Madam Zenaida, looking at the recent case where we had the government had acceded to carry out a referendum. It is on the basis of a law or a bill that has been proposed, in fact, has been passed in the House, so that we know what exactly that bill is all about. And that's the way in which we believe referendums have to be conducted, as opposed to, say, what's now the case with the ICJ. We don't know what we knew that we were going to vote yes or well, whether or not we wanted to go to the ICJ. We didn't know what Guatemala claim was going to be. And even now, having gone to ICJ, we still don't know what the claim is. And we are at the point now where Guatemala has submitted their claim, and we still don't know what it is. And we're told that a couple of days ago, the government has submitted its counterclaim, and even now we don't know what the government claim is. It is really a sad state of affairs, and so I think we need to be vigilant, because if people are not involved in this whole processes, then we could end up not knowing what's happening until it's too late. Yes, so that will be my contribution.
Okay. And this secrecy, I know that this secrecy has been something that has been very it has been very it has been a concern for the Belize Peace movement, and I'm sure for many others. And we know that recently, even in terms of who are representing us, there was an incident, that could have been of concern in terms of what we put forward, because when such a case that is kind of clouded in secrecy and a key individual, had to be called back, and then afterwards, return back to try and deal with this case. This is something that is of concern, but hoping that those who are representing us are patriots as well, because we can only hope, since we don't know much about them. We kind of know a few things. Some of us may know one and two things. We're not so sure about who it is. We're not sure even, do we even really know what they have? We don't know what they have put forward. We're not sure even who's paying. Do we know who's paying for this legal challenge? Do we know who's paying for this legal challenge? Because at the end of the day, they have a saying. What is it saying? Who pays the piper calls the tune. So who is it that is paying for this case? For this what you call it, this counter memorial, and paying for this case. Who is it? Or is it countries? I had heard that there are certain friends of Belize and all that. Who it is? Who is it? So we now know, though, that this particular, and I hope that you're hearing me, because I hope you're trying to make sure that this is something that everybody can hear. So I wanted to know, I want to make sure that that's the case. Now, this memorial and counter memorial, and this memorial and counter memorial that we've heard about, the counter memorial was just submitted. What exactly is it, and what are the agreed upon protocols as it regards submission of these memorials and counter memorials?
Okay, that is not so secret because it is in this document. All of the protocols are in this document called the special agreement.
Can you hear?
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Sure that y'all can hear. Let me make sure that y'all can hear, because I don't have to.
I can hear you. Shall I go ahead?
Go ahead now.
Okay, good. Yeah, the issue of the memorials and counter memorial is all defined in the special agreement. So those of you, the listeners, who do not have a copy of this document, it's still available. It's online. You could still get a copy, and you can then follow what is going on at the ICJ, or at least the process. But what happened in this document is that Guatemala had 1 year to deliver its memorial. Belize had 1 year to deliver its counter memorial. That is what happened this past month. Following that, that's 2 years, then Guatemala now has a chance to counter Belize's memorial. So they have 6 months to do that. Following the 6 months, then Belize will have one chance to counter, or they call it a rejoin, no? To counter Guatemala's counter memorial. So it is 1 year for Guatemala, 1 year for Belize, 6 months for Guatemala, 6 months for Belize. After that, the ICJ then takes over all the documents and then decides when the case will be called for oral hearing. It is at that time they will then publish, the registrar of the ICJ may publish the documents that have been filed. But I want to say one thing to clarify what is going on with the government since a couple of years ago, since Guatemala filed its memorial. The government of, yeah, go ahead.
Opinion, Brother Paul, because you mentioned that it's 1 year. Guatemala had 1 year and we had 1 year.
Right.
I would say that it's 1 year less 5 days because what we understand is that the government of Belize, in their own wisdom, decided that they had too much time, and so they're not going to take the whole 1 year. They took 5 years less, and they were boasting about it.
Yeah.
And to me, it struck a rab nerve on me because when I was going to school, I was told I'm going to do examination. Please don't come out early.
Yeah.
Take all the time, plan yourself, and take all the time and do everything.
Yeah.
Don't be too sure of yourself. Check everything.
Yeah.
'Cause in the event you fail examination, go say, oh my, whatever time you spent, have been better spent by better input. So I want to sound a note of caution where there seems to be a lot of pompousness in dealing with what are perhaps arrogance or perhaps a show of confidence, which could actually turn out against us down the road, and we might be able to regret it. Frankly.
Yeah, I join you in that because sometimes the person that comes out of the exams first and says, "Man, that me easy," then get the lowest grade.
Yes, get after it.
so 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 yeah, I think you're right on that. But what I was getting at is an issue that I really need to clear up tonight. With So go ahead, Zenaida, you were saying something. No? Can you hear me, Zenaida? Okay, good. Let me clear up.
Go ahead and make your point because I had another question.
Okay,
Go
good.
ahead.
Let me clear up one big issue. I think the big issue that I believe the public, the Belizean public, need to understand. Back in December of 2008, the Belize government said, quote unquote, and I'll read that, said that we have received Guatemala's memorial in relation to Guatemala's territorial, insular, and maritime claim to Belizean territory. The release further stated that the ICJ rules, listen carefully, the ICJ rules do not allow Belize to disclose Guatemala's pleadings, and Belize is obliged to abide by these rules. And they referenced Article 53(2) of the ICJ rules. Now, for reference, just for reference, I will read to you what that rule is. That is Article 53(2). That rule says the court, which is the ICJ, may, after ascertaining the views of the parties, decide that copies of the pleadings and documents annexed shall be made accessible to the public on or after the opening of oral proceedings. To synthesize this and to explain it, what the court is saying is that it will be in a position to issue official pleadings when the time for pleading is over. Like Brother Hubert just said, the ICJ will not give us documents from the registrar's office or give anybody, the international community, documents from the registrar's office, which is official, before the time for change is over. If they do that, they might be issuing documents that were pleaded in error. And so it makes sense. This rule makes good sense. But what the government has done is to use this good regulation as an excuse to not brief the people of Belize. Now, I want to make this very clear that the peace movement is here asking for transparency. We're not asking the government to give us the memorial of Guatemala because that might be in error in some part. We understand that. What we're asking the government to do is to be transparent and open with information that is coming to them from the memorial and from their own argument to the ICJ. It is important, Zenaida, you know why? Because if there is something that we need to adjust in our dealings as citizens, if, let's say, there's a part of the country that is being claimed and we ascertain from Guatemala's pleadings that that's a good chance that they will win, then we are prepared for that. We can adjust our business activities, our living activities, so that if the if it happens that we lose that area, then we don't lose too much. There will not be so much chaos. There will not be so much suffering. It is important that we know. Now, there are people in Belize who know, right? Now, I don't know if the NGOs, the churches, the unions, etc., those who are represented in the Senate had a chance to review these documents because, as I understand it, it's only the major political parties, the PUP and the UDP, their hierarchy, who have gotten a chance to look at the memorials. Now, if they have gotten a chance, you could bet you that the Minister of Foreign Affairs, knowing what he would know from these documents, would not make a mistake in his financial dealings within the country. So if he had any intention to invest in an area that is claimed and he might think that it's a good chance, he will not invest. But poor Paul here, who doesn't know, will invest there and will lose his backside there, if you understand what I mean. So I just wanted to explain that what the government has done is to make a good regulation into an excuse for doing what is right and just, is to brief the people of Belize as to what is going on at the ICJ and what is being claimed and how we are countering it.
But more so, Brother Paul, it's always good to to bring people along in the
So,
process.
Paul,
Which,
go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry. No, I was just making the point though that I think it's always good to bring people along in the process because this is a process which is rather unique, and it requires that the people be brought along and be brought into confidence with what's happening. And you may never know. There may be something in the document which some particular person may have a particular knowledge about which you're not aware of, and that could help the case. So that you could never know to what extent you could be assisted by openness and transparency, which could assist you in bettering your position when you do go before the ICJ. And so, in addition to bringing confidence to Belizean people on this whole matter, which is always it's always been a contentious issue, and they've always treated it with some secrecy. It would be helpful for people to know more or less what's happening and not we have an input in the final decision that's taking place. Because man know.
Yes, I agree. And there's this country, I believe it's Nigeria, isn't it? Nigeria, that they lost, they pretty much lost some land when they went to the ICJ. And you can, if you could shed some light on that, because as far as I believe I had read, these individuals, they were displaced. And Paul, what you mentioned in terms of, first of all, I feel by them going 5 days ahead and submitting the counter memorial 5 days ahead, some of them may have felt that that makes us look good. But as you rightly mentioned, that could also have made us look cocky. You know what I'm saying? Cocky, like, oh, we have everything covered. And, I'm somebody just like you. When I used to do my tests, my exams, I would take all the time I can and I will make sure, whatever I submit, that's it. If they feel so good about what they submitted, that they submitted it 5 days in advance, then we can only hope and pray that it is something worthy and strong enough. Having said that, however, we have not seen, at least I have not seen anything that is, setting people up that in the event it doesn't go how we would like it to go, that there's something in place. There's no contingency plan that I am aware of, especially for the people in the particular area down south that may stand to lose. And there may be people who voted yes to go into the ICJ because they genuinely felt, some of them were paid money. Let's put that out there. I won't cover up anything. I'm telling you, some people were paid. They got their little $50 or whatever they got to pay to vote how they were to vote. But then there's also, and those were a lot. But there's also genuinely some individuals who felt that, because of all the propaganda and because of all the push by the then government to say that, hey, we have an open and shut case, Belize will win. And we had key media personalities. I remember even their faces were on billboard. Roadside billboards saying that, join together for this ICJ. As a matter of fact, we even had a former prime minister, two-term prime minister, who also joined with the then current prime minister to step up and say, okay, we join on this matter. So we and the people went to this referendum and we voted with what was presented to us. The Belize Peace Movement, I believe, did its best to try to be the voice of reason and to put forward the other side, so that, you have all the deck of cards, you have all that you could use wisely. Money was something that was not there, I believe, for the Belize Peace Movement, the way the ICJ and the government, those who were the proponents of going to the ICJ, had this money. Money was flowing. Where was the money coming from? Wasn't it also coming from the UN, the United Nations? And I don't know if it was from ICB and all those things, but I do know that internationally we got funds to do the education, and that education and that propaganda was mainly geared towards going to the ICJ. Now, these individuals that are in that particular area, that in the event it doesn't go well, those people, there's nothing in place that I'm aware of for them. So what will happen? What will happen? And it's not that we're upset, because there's a lot of us, we will pray and we will hope, and even though we voted no, we want the matter to be to come up positive for us. That's what we genuinely want. That's what Haitians will want. So what can we now do to try and help in this particular case? All right, and especially to try and possibly even work with the government to try and see what can not have what happened in Nigeria. These people in Nigeria, at least the videos or whatever that I saw and what I read, it's like no man's land. So what will happen and what can we do?
It would be first good to understand what we're talking about in Nigeria so that we can mirror our situation with them, or match our situation with the Nigeria experience. This area, if anybody wants to research it, is called the Bakassi Peninsula in Nigeria. It was administered by the UK, the British, when they ruled Nigeria, and it was almost, the agreements almost went down like the Belize, the 1859 treaty. I don't know, somehow the British have a way to mess up treaties. But that was what happened back then in Nigeria. Eventually, France, and which was ruling Cameroon, decided that okay, we believe that due to all of the treaties, it should be ours. And then there was that dispute. Cameroon took it to the dispute to the ICJ. Nigeria pompously went along with it, just like Belize went along with Guatemala. And lo and behold, the ICJ voted that an area that had been administrated by Nigeria for over 100 years must now be turned over to lock, stock, and barrel. People, graves, churches, everything turned over to Cameroon, right? That happened in Nigeria. Totally dissing the right to self-determination of a people. They didn't even ask the people if they want to be Nigerians or Cameroonians. So that is what happened. We had testimony during our push to say no to the ICJ of a lawyer, Brother Hubert met that lawyer and had good interaction with her. She actually related her experience as a resident of the Bakassi Peninsula. What happened to them? They said they were kept in the dark. They didn't even know what was going on until UN surveyors came to their area to measure out the borders. And then they knew that they were supposed to be transferred to Cameroon. So given that background, what can we do? My answer to you, Ms. Zenaida, tonight and to all the Belizean people, the first thing, be a good citizen, be vigilant. Start to pay attention, ask questions. The land is yours, it is your heritage. The government is only elected to manage. Secrecy has no place in dealing with transparency. Everything must be transparent to avoid corruption. So, response again, what can we do? First thing, be a good citizen, pay attention, ask questions, and demand answers. That's what we're doing tonight.
Yeah. But just to quickly say, Rapal, the lady who, who gave that testimony on with Nigeria at the time of our campaign, she had also indicated that subsequent to that, things have gotten worse because there are promises made to those persons who were affected by the decision of the ICJ, that they were promised certain things, and no, they have not been. Those promises have not been delivered.
Yes.
And so they feel that they have been duped, and so all these things can come to pass if, in fact, if the experience of Nigeria is anything to go by. So we need to be vigilant indeed to ensure that this doesn't happen in the case of Belize.
And who are this panel of judges at the ICJ? Who do we have that will be presiding over this matter? Because that's concerning. A lot of times these people, they're away in Europe or wherever they're from, wherever they come from, and sometimes they've never been to Belize. You understand? To see that, yes, we're a part of Central America, just like Guatemala, but we are very Caribbean. No matter what color we are extremely Caribbean. It doesn't matter if we're automatically, you think, okay, our Afro-Belizeans are Caribbean, but you have our mestizos, you have our Mayan, you have, our East Indian, our Garifuna, all of us, the Mennonites, we're still very Caribbean, I believe. We're very Caribbean. I think we, with the exception of those who are at the outskirts, let's say, of maybe the western border, and possibly the north, they're, they have this they you know they may they speak their Spanish well, and maybe they're more aligned.
It's not those religions were the same boat like me. So if anything were to happen, it would be a calamity, but I want to get to that. What would happen, first of all, before we get to what would happen if a vote comes against us? But what would have happened if we had said no? No, we're not going to take the matter to the ICJ. What would have happened?
Let me just respond to something quickly that you asked before, what would have happened, and then I will go right into what would happen. You asked about the judges, and so I want to say that these judges, you could find them right on the internet on the ICJ website. Interestingly, the president is from the United States. The vice president is guess from where? Russia. Russia is currently claiming Ukraine, as you know. They have claimed Georgia, Moldova, all of these countries around Russia. In other words, what I'm saying is that the vice president has a different take on changing of territory, at least his country does, than our issue of self-determination. When you look at the lineup, other judges come from Slovakia. From Slovakia, has its own issues with land ceding left and right. France is the next judge, Morocco, Somalia, and guess who? China. China is claiming Taiwan. So you could bet you that they have no problems with changing territories, that kind of idea. Of course, we should not taint the judge with the policies of the country they come from. However, you have to be aware that they come from a country that has these same problems, right? Or at least the same ideas. Then we have Uganda, you have India, you have Jamaica. That might be a close friend of ours, might be Lebanon, Japan, Germany, and Australia. And there's one judge that is left to be seated at this point in time. So I read out 14 judges. But going back to that, I've told you about where the judges come from, and so that you could see what mindsets are being brought to this fora. What would have happened, Zenaida, if we did not vote to go to the ICJ is that the status quo would have continued, and it would have challenged Belize. It would have challenged us very seriously. It would have forced us to address the problem holistically. First step in addressing the problem is to approach the person you have a problem with. I don't think that it was a situation where Guatemala did not want to talk, closed off all negotiations, it is time to get the guns and start to shoot. That was not the case. I think that given the special agreement that we had agreed, there are provisions in there to deal with even rights for Guatemala within Belize. So we might even find ourselves that the ICJ says that, well, you won't give up land, but you have to give up certain rights, like those rights that were articulated in the heads of agreement. All right? I believe that the special agreement actually is a baby to the heads of agreement, if we remember way back in 1981, where Guatemala would have gotten the rights to pass through Belize, to use our ports, etc. All right? So what would have happened to us and Guatemala, because it's two of us living in this area, we would have to engage in negotiations again, because Guatemala would have no right to invade, because it would be illegal under international law, and Guatemala is no Russia. They would not be able to sustain an occupation of Belize. Therefore, that would be one handicap for them. 70% of their people do not support any kind of taking over of Belize. 70% are Mayan descent, and only 30%, 20 to 30% are the elite people of Guatemala. So it wouldn't be uh, good. It wouldn't be in Guatemala's favor to try to force Belize militarily. And so we would have to explore good negotiations, which might be exactly what the ICJ will be giving us. And it would be more sustainable when it's between us two rather than a court delivering something upon us. So that's just a brief. We could explore that more.
Yeah, but in addition to which, of course, we had been existing since 1981, and they have been managing fairly well without having to have gone to the ICJ. And I do believe that I recall that even in going to independence, we had that unanimous support of the United Nations, which enabled us to go to the United Nations. And so it have required then, in the advent of a no vote, it have required a redoubling of the effort that we see happen before the independence era, which saw, that effort, that push to rid ourselves of the problem. But that would have been continued on a more sustained basis, I think, so that it wouldn't have been where the case that if we had said no, it would have meant that Guatemala just come in to our country, to invade our country, because there are international forces at play who are supportive of Belize, who want to see the best for Belize. There's no question about that. It's just a matter of us tapping the right sources, doing the right things, and developing ourselves. And see, one of the reasons why I believe we are in the way in which we are in Zenaida is because of the fact that we have ourselves not done what we should do in terms of developing our country. They don't respect us because we have been engaging in much of the corruption which you see around the world. Belize could be in a prime position right now to be in its whole region because we have resources, but we've had a set of corrupted leaders that have left us down this path. And so I do believe that the future for Belize would have been bright given the proper leadership and direction that people like ourselves, the BPM, was trying to forge, and could still happen. So we can now all we could do now is sit and wait and hope that in fact these persons who Mr. Morgan has mentioned, who are now going to judge our case, would really do the right thing instead of carving our own future, which was in our hands. We've now left it for others to decide what is going to be our fate. It's not quite where we want to be at this point. And it doesn't go too well for me personally as a human being.
Just a quick addition to that. One step that we missed big time and that will haunt us, I believe, is the issue that if we had said no, then one of the things that we would have had to do is to get Guatemala to clarify its claim. Just like it did to the ICJ, it had to produce a memorial. That memorial could have been demanded and in negotiations. Tell us exactly what your claim is, so that we could now look at it and start the negotiations from there, because we are not the problem. We want to be friends with Guatemala. It is Guatemala who is making a claim, but we are running to the ICJ not knowing what they're claiming. That was the crazy stuff that we are talking about.
I love that point. I love that point, Paul, because we could have asked, I mean, yes, we have had this negotiating team, and they will say they ask questions. At the end of the day, we don't know what all they ask. We don't know what all they ask. This cloud of secrecy is not now. When they go and they call it up negotiations, they go, they sit there and they speak on behalf of us. A lot of times we don't know what they're talking about. Whatever we get is just a little press release sometimes, a little press release, a little snippet of what exactly is said. And we have had individuals representing us that, you know, we look at where they are right now and we're not sure, you know, we're not sure what to say about them. You know, if they were true patriots, if they're true nationalists, we're not sure. You see, we're not sure. Some of them aren't even here, as a matter of
some people, would question what exactly happened, why this push, why all of a sudden there was a push, because as I recall, we, for so long, everybody was saying, no, we're not going to go to war, no grain of grass, nothing, we will give up, and we were very staunch, and then all of a sudden, me was almost from both sides. One side had held off, and the other side came. Then you have members from, all right. So it was the current the incumbent government, the UDP, that was pushing us during the when we went for the referendum. They were in office at the time, and so they were the ones. They were the ones who were pushing the issue, and they were the ones pushing the issue.
However, as I recall, the opposition, whether or not they just did it just to oppose, they were very staunch and they said no to the ICJ. And so you had the Belize Peace Movement, and there was this, there was this resistance still. There was this resistance. But the fact that we still had key individuals from the at that time, the People's United Party, who were still, we had, what is it, the current Chief Justice right now, no, current, what is she? Lisa Schumann. She's she's not Chief Justice. It's Miss Michelle Arana is the Chief Justice, or the acting Chief Justice. We have Lisa. We have Said Musa also. These individuals, I recall, were very staunch in moving forward to the to the ICJ. And so what happened? Why this push? Because the party, I recall, the People's United Party was not supportive, just like the Belize Peace Movement was not supporting it. I think even Eamon Courtney, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was not supporting going to the ICJ. And he's a huge voice for the People's United Party, given who he is and his background as an attorney. And so we saw this push. We saw people really afterwards, they being split, being torn. Man, for all these years, I didn't support going to the ICJ. I didn't support even saying that, to even contemplate or give substance to any claim, the Guatemala claim, and all of a sudden now, our leaders are pushing us. So what happened? What is it that happened? What is it that happened? Is it that they really and truly felt that we had an open and shut positive case, winning case? Is that it? Or was it, for example, our friends who were paying to go to the ICJ, helping to pay to go to the ICJ, was it them who wanted this issue squashed? And if so, what's in it for them? Because I really want us to go to what we stand to lose if we get a negative outcome.
That we stand to lose. But to be fair, there are some benefits also. So What I would say, if you sum the benefits and the potential loss, in the end, the benefits is not worth the risk. There's a massive risk. That's what we were saying. Even if we win, even if nothing is taken away from Belize, even if the ICJ says Guatemala pack up and go away, we still took a risk that was not worth the while, because Guatemala can still come back. It's a free sovereign country. They can continue their claim. It might not be a legal claim that the ICJ will uphold, but their armies will do the same. They will harass us still all over the country at the borders. They might even make some incursions. What can the ICJ do about that? Nothing. Nothing. The ICJ doesn't have an army. So really, we have to sit here to live with Guatemala. What is there to lose? We stand to lose territory. We stand to lose rights in our own country. What we stand to gain is victory, a legal victory at the ICJ that may be enforceable, may not be. In other words, I repeat, the benefits is not worth the risk.
Yeah, yeah. I want to echo your sentiment there, Brother Paul, that in fact, you know, when you look at it,
Did somebody say something?
now I was making a point though that
Yeah, I think you were
that
just talking.
I was reinforcing the point that when you look at the benefits, uh, and so we should never again, even if we were to come out of this case unscathed, you know, put ourselves in a position where with this kind of vulnerability and with this kind of in this indecision where we're a bit of a flux right now. We've gone 3 years into an 8-year process, and so there's 5 more years for us to go through this process, and at the end of which we don't know exactly what's going to happen. So it's a bit agonizing, and at the same time, we are not really making the kind of preparations that you pointed out earlier, Sister Zenaida, in terms of what's going to happen in the worst case scenario. For those persons who will be affected by if there's an adverse decision coming out of the ICJ, you know, we're not being prepared for it, and we're seeing what happens in other countries that these things are possible. So what it tells us really and truly is that we have to start to prepare ourselves for a worst case scenario, so that people are not displaced and that people are properly accommodated in the event that it doesn't turn out the way you know, we are projecting turn out.
I want us, I will want us to move to the redistricting case since I have you guys here. But just before, I just want to say a pleasant good night to Affair Casanova watching in from Corozal. Good night, my friend Nancy De Paz. Good night. Rachel and Elizabeth Balaramos. Good night. Adolfo Carlos Garcia watching from Mexico City. Good night, my friend. You know, he said, proud of Belizeans who have love for Belize and share their talent and dedication. Congratulations to the panel and host. Good show. Thank you very much. Good night, Melbourne Wade. Aricela Hizar. Good night. Glenford, George, Gibson. Good night. Fruitful good night to you as well. Yolanda R. Mackenzie. Ruben Martinez, he says, I agree with the gentleman who said our country should be further along in development. Belize has the potential of coming out of third world status years ago. The gentleman mentioned corrupted politicians. That's on both sides. We need to change the way we vote. Stop voting for party and vote for upstanding people. So that's thank you very much, Ruben Martinez. I want to, and good night to everybody else. Good night, and all those watching in on LinkedIn and on again on Max TV, listening on the Max TV and radio as well, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Good night, everybody. Good night. MATLAB as well, radio and Maxim. So I want to say that this leads us into the question of the redistricting case, because we're here now and we see, and let me just throw this out here though, before we move on. We had seen Michael Ashcroft, Lord Ashcroft. He was, I recall he had taken pictures, I think down south some months ago. And someone had said, well, if he's down there taking photos, it's possibly because he's looking at investment. And so, it's because he doesn't have any fear of the outcome that will come along. What's your thought on that, guys?
Yeah. Money talks, Ms. Zenaida. Money talks. Mr. Ashcroft, fear not, because whether it's Guatemala or Belize in administration, his money will be good with both. So he votes with money. Nobody should believe that Mr. Ashcroft fears Guatemala taking over Belize. It might just be advantageous to him. That's my take on that issue that you're discussing there. But we could always talk about the redistricting case otherwise. Brother Hubert, what you got to say about that?
Quite interesting. It's the same character of those who is also involved in the case, where he has been able to attach himself onto the case of redistricting, and we're very grateful for him in the sense that he was able to bring an expert witness who was advised on what the international standards are in terms of redistricting. So that is going to be, well, as you know, we have survived an attempt to throw the case prematurely when the government made an order or requested that the case be struck out, and we have now prevailed over that, and so now the case now moves to full trial. And one of the things that's going to happen really is that we are going to hear evidence by the expert witness who was assigned to the case, and that expert witness is going to guide the court on how the exercise should be carried out. And one of the things that is one of the interesting points that he has made really is the fact that you don't have to be excited that takes 6 months or 3 or 4 months. If you have proper technology, you could do it in a couple of weeks. In fact, Paul had said a couple of days you could draw a map. And in fact, he had proceeded in drawing some maps already. He has four maps he's drawn already, and so the question of drawing further maps, perhaps we may have already accomplished that already, because experts have done certain things which could be used in furthering this whole matter. But the point though is that we have that kind of expertise that we can now utilize to move the case forward and hopefully get it resolved very, very quickly. It is trotting along very, very slowly. This case was brought up in 2019, and we're now in 2022, and we're still not really at the point where we are full trial yet. We've got several issues several diversionary issues to attack. Like, for instance, the first one was having to do with the question of whether or not we should have an interested party. That was a trial within a trial, so to speak, and we've had a secondary one in which the government is seeking to throw our case, but now we're now moving to full trial, and we feel good that in fact it is proceeding on the line, and there really cannot be any different outcome than what the Constitution provides for, which is that districts are to be almost as equal in each of the constituencies, and so we're very, very confident that in fact that's going to be the result, and that precisely was the reason why we believe that the government was trying to divert the case, because that was really the only perhaps the only thing they could have actually hinged on to divert the case. But now that has been, we have prevailed against that, there's a very good chance now that we're going to get the court to rule that, in fact, we have a situation where, we have one man, one vote situation, which is not the case at the moment. Where in some divisions, for instance, for judge, they have a vote. They have votes, which are, they like, as compared to, for instance, Pujara as compared to Sistan Creek West, for instance, there's a 5-1 difference in value of the votes, which is clearly out of sync with any international standard or any standard whatsoever, and it has prevailed for many years. And if it wasn't for the effort that we have done now, despite the fact that we have both political parties, we will still be where we are right now. Because even now, the parties are pretty quiet about this whole matter. PUP, when they were in position, they said that they were going to support the matter, but they started to strike it out. And the UDP were there for many years, they did not talk about this whole matter. And so it takes effort of civil society and other persons like ourselves to get these matters going. And also people like our attorney, Mr. Sandiva, who has agreed to work with us, to have these matters going. And so it isn't finished. We hope that it's going to work out in our favor. We have very good reason to believe so, but we're going to continue to work and make sure it happens.
And but I want to say, when with this redistricting, the fact that we still have persons saying that a lot of people who do not live in an area still, still were transferred and still were left in a particular area where they don't live. Do you think that with this redistricting, it will actually stop that? Because you have some people who, for example, in particular constituency, that's where they want to vote. And even if that particular constituency is split and they have to move to another, they are to vote in another area. If that particular area rep for them, let's say that's the one in office, for example, voted, or that's the incumbent, may very well find a safe house to put them. Do you think that this redistricting will really alleviate that, or you think at least to a minimum, it will?
It would alleviate the problem, but it will not cure the problem. The redistricting is strictly geared to have the numbers of voters within the constituencies almost equal. The disparity as exists today is too broad, out of order, like Brother Hubert says, out of international norms, out of constitutional norms to uphold. So what we're doing now with redistricting will take care of the numbers only. If somebody lives in Corozal and wants to vote in Fort George, as long as the politician, they can prove that they have a residence in Fort George, whether it's true or not, it is the Elections and Boundaries Department's job to make sure that they're telling the truth or prove that they're not telling the truth, then that won't be cured. But as we go along, little by little, we will take care of the problems with numbers in the division. Like I said, it will be alleviated, it will not be cured. But it's better, it will be a much better situation. 10,000 voters in Stan Creek West, 1,900 in Fort George, that will be a thing of the past.
Okay. Okay. And and yeah. And with that said, do you feel that this redistricting, we're, what is it, one, two, we're a year and how many, 7 months into this administration? The process should start, and is there anything that for example, the BPP is being, is being asked to be a part of, or any of the alternative parties or third parties, however you want to call it, asked to be a part of this process, understanding that the two mass parties, yes, they're elected. However, they stand to give, with a process like this, you would want transparency. And so with the alternative party, in this case, the major one being the BPP, Belize Progressive Party could be a part of it. Has there been any push, or is there anything being said as to ensuring that they will be a part of it? I mean, we can talk about the unions, we can talk about the churches and all that, but at the end of the day, the most affected, since this is also a political decision, would be the main political parties. Has there been anything as it regards to ensuring that, that inclusion of, for example, the BPP?
Zenaida, it is a proposal that has been made having to do with looking at the composition of the Election and Boundaries Commission itself, because that is where there is some difficulties, some problems. Because we actually these issues that we have having to do with districting should not have occurred. That's where they have actually dropped the ball that has allowed the situation to be where it is in terms of not carrying out their mandate as is required under the Constitution. The Constitution is very clear what is the role of the Election Boundaries Commission in terms of making sure that those constituencies are to be the same. It has not happened because there's been a politicization of these commissions. Whenever one party comes out, it makes sure to put persons in there that are subservient to the party. So one of the proposals we have been working on, along with civil society, of course, is to ensure that particular body becomes one which is much more impartial as opposed to being political. And if we're able to achieve that, we have accomplished something so that it will help to safeguard against what's happening right now with this kind of situation. Because for now, what we can say is that the court could rule that in fact it has to be done the way it should be done. But if we don't have the guardrails in place, if we don't have the proper institution in place, and that institution really is centered around the Elections and Boundaries Commission, and that ought to be far more independent and far more impartial than it is right now. It's really a partisan political body at the moment. It ought to be, and if it continues the way it is, then we're going to continue to have these kind of problems. And so there has to be, along with what we're doing, an effort to make sure that particular body becomes more independent.
Yeah, I also like to add to that it is really offensive to the Constitution when we mandate that political parties have to
Is
be.
there anything?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to say that political parties, redistricting is not about political parties. Redistricting is about adhering to the Constitution of Belize. And so I'd like to make it clear that while we want the Elections and Boundaries Commission to be revamped, it is in accordance and for the benefit of the Constitution, not for the benefits of the political parties.
Okay. I like that. I like that you mentioned that. But that's the ideal. That's the ideal, Paul. That's the ideal. Realistically, practically, we're talking about political parties. We're talking about election. They are the ones who stand to lose, stand to gain. The ideal is, yes, you would want everything to be equal, fair, and yeah, we go and we try to split it up as fair as possible. That's the ideal. However, uh, for example, when it was done, when I remember when they had split up Lake Independence, and Lake Independence had got split up, and you had part of it going to Pickstock and a part going to Albert. That affected the persons who ran in that particular time when that happened, and I'm sure in whatever other eras that would have happened. So it is something that you have certain people who have been entrenched in particular areas, in particular division. So they stand to lose or they stand to gain depending on what the outcome is and how the redistricting, how it is split up. You understand? We already hear how ideally, in one aspect they're looking at like 3 different constituency joining into one, and it's certain things that what would happen are 2 constituency joining in that merging that would become one. I mean, these are things that you look at it and you say, well, you have 2, for example, if it's 2 constituency now, you have 2 elected officials. What will happen to that person? You know what I'm saying? So this thing is real, and at the end of the day, it's like when we voted for the 30th senator, it was looked at with a view that it would help in terms of the outcome and the decision-making process towards the country, towards the people. That did not happen. Yes, we voted for it, and that did not happen until way long after. Now, in the event that this particular redistricting process, it goes along, and there are certain areas that doesn't look quite proper, doesn't look constitutional. Let us use the word constitutional. What is in place, or what are in place to ensure that that anomaly is remedied? What would the people have to go to or to use to ensure that that is remedied before the next election? All right, I know you spoke about the commission, because I think that would have been the ideal thing to ensure you keep different, the different players on the commission to ensure that there is a fight, there's a vote, the concerns are heard there. But if in fact, and since that is not the case, what will be there to safeguard that this process is an honest process, it's a transparent process, and it's a process that that everybody can come out and say, hey, we're moving ahead in a proper and in a very fair manner, an equitable manner.
A matter of going back to the court, guys, I mean, I want to see that the Chief Justice, in a recent ruling in which she didn't agree with the government's proposal to strike out the case, she reminded them that in fact the court had a special role to play in interpreting the Constitution, and that was really solely for the purview of the court itself, and not for the government. The government cannot mandate, or the government can do certain things, but the court has a certain function to play in this whole democratic process which we are undergoing. And so, if we require efforts such as one we're engaged in at the moment, continue to perhaps even more with more intensity to utilize the courts and to get. It's unfortunate, but that's what we have to do because that's the only way it seems to be that we were able to get some reprieve from our political leaders, from political parties by going to the court and seeking the court intervention in interpreting the laws and applying the laws. Um, the court doesn't have its own army, mind you. The court doesn't have an army, but at least it has, the wealth of knowledge to be able to exercise its jurisdiction in determining what is fair, what is right, and what is constitutional, what's not constitutional. And so we have to use it to a greater extent than we have done before. And unless we do that, sometimes we tend to trample on our own rights if we don't do the right things when we should do them. And this effort that we're doing now is really one of such efforts, and there are going to be many such efforts, many more, because it isn't only this exercise that really is out of work. There are many other issues that need to be attended to, and what you have from ourselves is a commitment that we are going to now, as this is finished, look at other areas where we could actually plug those holes and get reprieve from the courts, because it seems to us that the political leaders are not interested in some of these issues, and so it's going to depend on people to bring it up and to get the court to rule on it.
Yeah. What is the Belize peace movement? What are other areas that the Belize peace movement is thinking about dealing with? I know the redistricting case is big. The ICJ case was huge. Was a big effort, and now we have the redistricting case. What else? I mean, I know that the Canal. What else? Can you tell us? I want to hear a bit more about what the Belize peace movement, what are some of their plans moving forward? And also, how can someone be a member of the Belize peace movement? And why should there be a member of the Belize peace movement? What is there? What is there? I know the Patriots spoke. Tell us.
Well, there are several
to be a part of it.
Yes, there are several pending issues. For instance, looking at, if you mentioned one of them, which is UNCAC. The second one will be looking at matter of campaign financing. Then we're also looking at the whole question of political parties themselves, how they should be registered and how they should be accountable to people. All of these things have to be addressed, and so we're taking it one step at a time, and and seeing that in fact at the end of the day, we can only grow, our country can only improve if we pay attention to these issues. And we have not been doing so for quite a long while now. And this group of persons have decided they are going to champion this cause. It's the cause less trodden, because people seem to prefer to just take it easy and forget the problems. But that doesn't mean that the problems are going to disappear. It just gets worse, and so we have to take the bull by the hand and get engaged and champion these causes. It takes quite a bit of effort, quite a bit of sacrifice and commitment and dedication, because as a member of the peace movement, you yourself become vulnerable in the sense that you're not those persons who oppose your views. They're not happy. They might be happy with you, and so they will find a means of making life as difficult as possible for you. So it is not an easy path to choose, but it's certainly rewarding, because at the end of the day, when you see that there's accomplishment, you feel satisfied that in fact things are moving in the right direction. And so what I feel about from my colleagues, and there are quite a few of us actually, is that very feeling that in fact, whilst we're whilst we're making the sacrifice, we still feel that we have made a contribution to ensuring our country
Okay.
is a better country.
Um,
And that's the idea, is really
yeah.
the objective. What about.
Yeah, two exciting areas, Zenaida, that I think you'd like to hear about that we're eyeing is the issue of the Integrity Commission, where politicians.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. I missed it. Let me just say, I want us to just hear. Okay. Sorry, guys. Just a little feedback. I want us to start wrapping up and just to let us know what it is that the Belizean people can do. We've discussed two issues, and I would want that the Belizean people have something to go on. You see, some of us have been trying our best to fight, trying our best to, champion different causes. But I feel that we're at a point where, you have for lack of a better word, you have the lions, you have the tigers, who have stepped up and have been true warriors over the years. A lot they sometimes you need new blood. You need persons who will come along and be the ones to step up, be on the front line, and start to bring in, that um, additional fervor, that additional oomph. And so I need to know what it is that Belizeans can do. We have people watching from throughout the country, abroad as well. You know what I'm saying? So what is it? I really feel that as a watchdog organization, to ensure that there is betterment for our country, that there has to be at all times a strong volunteer force, because the Belize Peace Movement is made up of volunteers, we have different persons that are part of the group. You have the Northern Territorials, you have a Southern Territorial group, you have people who are just fighting, still they're fighting. You have Will Mejia, he's in the south. Will Mejia has been somebody who, I have to big up Will. Will has been somebody who, you think about Toledo, you think about, the SARS too, you think about this issue, the same ICJ issue, you think about Will Mejia too. He has been somebody who has been there fighting and championing in the south, and I have to give enough respect and big up Will. Will is there fighting and fight. He's all the way in the south. Sometimes you say south is a forgotten district. Well, Will made sure that even he have his TV station, PG TV, that he tries to bring forth news. You know what I'm saying? So, and so we have to big up people like Will, Bobby Lopez, someone who has, he's been there in the trenches and trying to fight along, with you, Paul Morgan, you, Hubert Enriquez, trying to fight and all the others. And so, but we need to ensure that we get more persons involved. You understand? And we need to nurture our young persons to get involved and to continue to understand that Belize needs more patriots. It's not just a me mindset. You see, it can't be just a me mindset. It has to be a mindset whereby we're fighting for our country and we will not give up. Some of us have stayed in Belize simply because we know that this country needs patriots to stay here and help it develop in whichever area we feel we can contribute to and help in the development. We do so, whether it's an engineer, a surveyor, an architect, whatever it is, in the agricultural field, as an economist, however it is, We need to ensure that we need leaders that will be devoted and that will actually love Belize, not love themselves at the expense of the country. Yes, we all have to love ourselves, but we have to love our country. We have to love our fellow Belizean. And that for a great extent, we see the suffering, we see the extent of the poverty in Belize. We see the extent of the poverty. I won't get into the high cost of fuel still and understand what's happening because we have Mexico right next door. You understand? But yet we're paying, what is the price now? I think $16 or more. Is it more? 60, 16 something, I'm not sure. But the point is that we are at this point where people are really suffering. So we need to get more people involved so that these issues, because see, if it's just a small group of people trying to handle and manage these issues, it takes a toll. It takes a toll, but if we would have more persons trying to deal with this issue, could come under one banner, but try to deal with different issues, we could definitely keep people in check and ensure that we can get betterment for our country through democracy, through development. So I want to hear your two of you guys, your last word for the show so we can wrap it up and just speak to the Belizean people. Tell them what it is that we need to get done.
I take in your cue, Sister Zenaida, having been a person in the trenches yourself, having yourself also run for elected office, you've had that experience, you've had that knowledge to know what it is like to be out there and what it is that people look to in terms of leadership and so forth. But the Belize movement, really, we have been operating. I would say it's close to 5 years since we've been going, and we've started to have several sessions with young people. It's been rather difficult, but perhaps we need to put more effort in that regard to get other persons involved in this process. As the writer pointed out, we are really, not very young anymore. And we need to have people who are going to take over from us. And this really is a word cause, and it has to continue. But our country will only improve if we are willing to make sacrifices for it. And that is really our challenge. We want to benefit, but we want to sacrifice, and it doesn't happen that way. Change takes time, it takes effort, it takes sacrifice, and one has to have a committed plan, a dedicated plan, and a vision for betterment, and to see it come true. We have been working on a plan that was carved some years ago, even when we were with the VIP. We had a direction which spoke of several things, and I believe a part will speak of it. We're still very much pursuing those ideals of having a healthy family life, having a productive society, having a corruption-free society. All of those things are things which we want to accomplish. But it requires that an effort which will engage people in the process, and this is where I believe we may have been a bit lacking in terms of mobilizing and reaching out to people across the country, because people do want change. There are people who want to be involved in this kind of process, but it's still for us to reach out to them and to embrace them in this exercise. But it can happen, and our commitment is that we have to find time and effort to do it, because it is rewarding and our country deserves the best. So those would be my words, and the thing I would say that the Belize Peace movement is really here to try to nurture that kind of change that we want to see for our country, and we want to encourage persons who have the feeling of wanting to see change, come forward and to get involved with the movement. We have an office at the Bantu Street in Japan, and there's a phone number which you can share. For example, Paul Morgan really um, is really his home really is our office at the moment, and then we could welcome those persons. We are always willing to engage with them, to have talks, to go to schools, to talk to people, to talk to younger persons about their experiences and what is required, and on different issues as well. We have had several discussions, for instance, on the matter of redistricting. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were at the SJC talking to young people because they want to hear about these issues, and I myself have had several discussions on matters of UMCAC, for instance, because I'm involved with the NTUCB as well, and I have been the point person on UMCAC for the NTUCB. We don't have to be involved with one organization. We can be involved in several organizations. But the whole objective really is to make a contribution towards making the country better in terms of its governance, and that's what we're trying to accomplish. And we just need to get more people involved with it. And I do take a point that effort to get people involved has to be at the forefront of our effort. Thank you very much, and I'm so happy to have been here on the program. I'm looking forward at some point to have another engagement with you to discuss other issues.
Yeah, I think Brother Hubert has said it all, but I'll just add a couple more things. One, involvement is citizenship. And I say to Belizeans who want to be a part of the whole development of Belize, don't wait for an organization, don't wait for another person. Work with who you have around you, community organization. You have neighbors, you have friends, get together. 3 persons, 4 persons, 5 persons, discuss the matter, take it further. If you want people like myself, people like Hubert, the Belize Peace Movement, you could call me. My number is in the phone book. You could call myself, 605-3529. It's all there. But don't be waiting for others to solve the problem for you. Try to work with who you have around you, your family, your friends. Talk. You see, Zenaida, what you are doing with this show, I didn't tell you to do this. I don't think anybody told you to do this. You are a good citizen. You decided this is what you can do to help your country. You did it. And I want to encourage all Belizeans to play your part. Be involved. 2 joining 5, 5 joining 10, 10 joining 50 makes a big organization. The days of mass political parties are waning, and it is time for citizens to take up their role. I end with that, and thank you for inviting us, Zenaida. Let's keep the faith that Belize will develop, and God be with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you very much, Hubert. And Ruben Martinez said there's a lot of smart people in the diaspora. They should become a part of that watchdog movement. And we do have some individuals in it. I want to tell you, though, that it's been a pleasure speaking with you guys. Wealth of knowledge, very intelligent individuals who have contributed to our country. And the time is now. More people need to get on board. The country, we're in a predicament now. There's so many social issues plaguing us, and we see a lot of hopelessness in our country. We see a lot of people who they don't care about people. We see people who are killing themselves. You just don't hear about it. You don't know that people are killing themselves. Someone just killed himself, I know, in Belmofan. So a young person. This is something that we a lot of people don't know it's happening. There's a lot of hopelessness, and even with the pandemic, what all has happened, it has delved people into more poverty. A lot of people are already poor. It's worsened. And so there's a need to join up. Sometimes some individuals, they don't know how to think. Sometimes they don't know how to think for themselves. Let me just throw it out there. So they need some guidance. And with good leadership, we can, mold more persons to become leaders, because that's what we ultimately want. We want more leaders. We want more good leaders who will love the people enough to do right by them and to want betterment for them. So again, you're right. This is something I felt that we have to do something. There has to be a voice for the people. And so that's why the Zenaida Moya show is there, to try and discuss certain issues that affect our country. And if it can help in terms of to gear policy in a way that will be for the betterment of our Belizeans, for our country, then that will be, just icing on the cake. That's what we ultimately want. I want to say that this show is brought to you. We've been very blessed. Thank you very much, Belize Peace Movement. Thank you, guys. I want to thank you. We ask that you continue to support the show. Watch Max TV and radio, who is bringing it live throughout the country. And of course, it's broadcasted. It's also live internationally as well. So we want to thank you. See Belize Vacation Rentals. I want to thank Sea Belize Vacation Rentals, the team. It's located at...
The number is 615-4465, 615-4467, and 615-4485. We have
wonderful individualized vacation rentals. We have a big pool, 40-foot pool by 40 by 16 feet, 6 foot at one instance, so you can dive if you want, and the other more shallow area, you can just hang around. It's beautiful. It overlooks the sea, and it's here for Belizeans and for foreigners alike. So if you're thinking of a nice location to hang out, to engage, have some fun with your family or friends, contact Sea Belize Vacation Rentals. The website is www.seabelizevacation.com, SEE belizevacation.com. Contact us and you will have a time of your life. So I'd like to ask that we go ahead. Thank you all our viewers. And next week we will have another informative and important show. That's what we aim to do. Try to educate our people and inform them on issues that matter to them. This is what it's about, helping each other. So with that said, thank you very much. Join the Belize Peace Movement. All right, you can contact Brother Paul Morgan, Brother Hubert Enriquez, Brother Bobby Lopez, Brother Will Mejia. Just go ahead, Irvin Neal, just go ahead and be a part of the movement. Good night, and take it away. Let's hear. I want to thank our technician as well, Ben Ruiz. Thank you very much, Ben Ruiz. Thank you also, Kelvin, Moya Flores. Thank you, guys. And of course, I want to thank Max TV and Radio. And go ahead and let's see the credits and let's see the ad for the Sea Belize Vacation Rental so people know where it is. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful good night. Until next week, God bless.
sea view rooms, or suites, all with flat screen television, hot and cold bath, and unlimited access to a spacious and refreshing 40 by 16 foot pool with 6 to 4 feet depth. So you can enjoy that fun and refreshing dive or dip in the pool. We sell ice cold drinks so you can relax and unwind on our overwater or poolside decks. Contact us at 501-615-4485, 65 or 67.